A very warm welcome to the Creative Dealmaker podcast. I'm Carl Allen, I'm your host, and I'm going to be interviewing expert guests sharing investor strategies that will completely and utterly disrupt the market when it comes to buying and selling businesses all over the world.
You know, the thing about selling a company, and we've talked about this before, is that there is no kind of playbook. There is no simulator. I often equate it to, Sully landing that plane on the Hudson River. He had done everything there was to do in an airplane, yet he'd never landed an airplane on the Hudson River. That was something he had to do once. He had to grease the landing, and everything was at stake at 119 lives or whatever it is at stake. I think the same thing is true of most business owners. Like we get to write marketing plans and sell customers and deal with customer, satisfaction and write leases. Like we do those things repetitiously, right? So we get good at them. Yeah. Selling a company is only something you ever do once. And so once you have that experience, you kind of feel almost obliged to give it back, to pass it on. And so I think that's true. I think some people choose to do it as a hobby, others as a coach, others as an investor, as an angel investor. So yeah, I think I've seen all of those. I think it's actually one of the secrets to a satisfying exit. You referenced Exit Planning Institute. They did a piece of research a while back. I think it was 74% of business owners who exit within 1 year are depressed or sad about their outcome. Yeah. And when we unpacked that data, we discovered that the reason they're unhappy, one of the reasons that they're unhappy, is that they were all push and no pull. What do I mean by push versus pull? Push is the things you referenced, right? Like I'm frustrated with employees, like regulation, the government of the day, like I'm just frustrated, right? Those are all push factors. And we all have them when we think about, our business. And those are things that often cause people to want to sell. Pull factors are the things you're excited to go do next. Be an angel investor, for example, or start an incubator, for example. Kieran Merchant, I just interviewed him on the pod. He was a lifelong closet filmmaker. He grew up in India, came to the United States, and got involved in aviation consulting, helping airports design new terminals. And it was kind of a boring job, to lack of a better word, but he'd always had this sort of closet interest in filmmaking. And so by the age of 55, he'd built a great little 12-person consulting firm that helped these airports kind of create new terminals. And he decided to sell it. And why did he sell it? It was a great business, throwing off a lot of cash. It was because he was excited to go be a full-time filmmaker. Yeah. And the sale of the company gave him enough money to go do that. And so I think it's really a good best practice to get really clear about what's your next chapter look like. And once you do that, I think that's the raw material for a happier exit, regardless of what financial outcome you get.
Yeah, and that's a really interesting point, actually, because I'm very early 50s now, and I keep getting asked by my family, when are you gonna retire and stop doing this? And kind of can't, because I love being a coach and educator. I love buying businesses, right? But like what's really interesting is, and you mentioned like the landing the plane on the Hudson River. Like obviously you're working on the sell side. I'm primarily working on the buy side of deals. And I coach my business buying students all the time about when you're buying a business, like often if it's your first time, you've got the same emotions. Like you don't know what you don't know. And my analogy is like having children, right? So I've got two boys, they're 15 and 27, right? Bit of a gap. And I remember when my 27-year-old was born, like the anxiety, the nerves, the worry, just like, how am I going to be a good dad? Is the birth going to go well? How's it going to work? I didn't know, right? When the second guy came along, it was like, yeah, that's fine. Like out he came, went and had a beer, no problem at all. Because I'd been through it once, right? And like I feel for a lot of business owners that and you probably heard me talk about it before. I'm not a massive fan generally of the business broker community. I personally don't like dealing with brokers. I'd rather originate deals off market. I've developed some tactics to get in front of them and build relationships with them, right? I don't feel brokers do enough of a job preparing a seller for that sale. And I'm not just talking about, the business's, let's call it financial and strategic readiness. but I think it's that personal readiness as well, both in terms of have they got all their ducks in a row, but then have they thought about that afterlife? You know, what do they actually want to do next? And I think until they have that future pacing of this is what I'm going to do with the rest of my life, I think that can hold a lot of business owners back from actually pulling the trigger.